So the problem with all these disorders, it all boils down to the nervous system. And I can explain how everything's related. Like you've got two systems running that affect the nervous system. One is the pattern recognition, and the other one is the sensory system. So the sensory system boils down to the window of tolerance. How much can you handle before you're dysregulated? And then the pattern recognition is basically like the library of how many the things that trigger you, what you've been through in your past, that the things that your brain recognizes as harmful. So your danger library. When like BPD is running both problems at one time, they call it an overactive amygdala, but what it is a library full of it's a life full of trauma with a library that says everything is dangerous because everything has been in their life. And you put that on top of a compressed window where they can't handle much before they're dysregulated and they go above what's considered normal, and that's going to be BPD. It's a two-part problem. Then narcissism. Narcissism is just a very sophisticated way to deal with the compressed window. They don't have the pattern problem, they have a compressed window problem. And at a young age, they learned how to develop these tactics to keep people from being able to penetrate, get close enough to activate the window, like their window of tolerance. So that's why they develop like a false self, so to speak, so that you can't get close enough to be able to activate that system. It's just a highly sophisticated self-defense mechanism. Also, though, that's why if you do penetrate the system and you cause narcissistic injury, that's why it's crazy. It's affected by the they have rejection sensitivity. That's a window of tolerance problem. And that's really the rest of ADHD is caused by another problem. Autism has both problems. It's the pattern recognition is offline. Sometimes it's dysregulated. Sometimes they miss social cues. They miss things that they shouldn't miss. That's a pattern problem. The sensory problem is affected. They have like touching them causes their window of tolerance to get activated. They can't handle much of that. And that's where you see a lot of the meltdowns and things like that. That's sensory problems right there. So they have both problems. They just go the opposite way as BPD. Like they see less than more. Do you see what I'm saying? Their library activates less than more. Then, dark empaths. That's another interesting one because what they did was they had a compressed window and they have extremely good pattern recognition, but they learned how to use that really good pattern recognition as an offense system to the compressed window. So I'm just gonna use my ability to understand people and connect with people to make sure that they never hurt me. That's actually a dark empath. And then with antisocial personality disorder, psychopathy, they have no window at all. There's no window. They have no fear. They're not affected in the same way as the rest of them by a window of tolerance that knocks them offline or overwhelms them. And so also the genetic factor in all of this is that window of tolerance. That's the part that is passed down. It's epigenetics. And if you're coming from a line of trauma, they actually pass that trauma down to you. So if my grandmother experienced so much trauma that it changed her, then by the time it got to me, I would have been born with a compressed window. So you could have been adopted. You could have came from a trauma line, got adopted. So you got the compressed window, but you go to a family who doesn't trigger you, it doesn't build your trigger library up, so to speak. It doesn't cause you to think everything is a threat, and you won't have these problems. That's why you can explain why one twin would have this problem and one wouldn't, because you got to have both.